Now shift focus to the big story. We are tracking a tragedy in Uttarakhand. A chopper has crashed near Kedarnath, killing at least 6 people. The DGCA has said that as per the preliminary information, a Bell 407 helicopter belonging to a Delhi-based company has crashed on way from Kedarnath to Guptkashi, possibly due to bad weather. There were 6 passengers and 1 pilot on board. That's what the DGCA is saying. The crash is said to have happened near Garud Chatti. Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia has tweeted saying that we are in touch with the state government to ascertain the magnitude of the loss and are constantly monitoring the situation. So that tragedy happening there near Kedarnath in Uttarakhand. All right, let's take it to our expert to understand what could have led to this crash. Joining us right now is Air Commodore B.S. Siwach, an aviation safety expert. Air Commodore Siwach, thanks very much for speaking with me now. You've seen these pictures there. It is being said that this is possibly the crash has happened due to bad weather. How challenging is it to fly choppers in that terrain in the weather where there is fog, there's continuous rain, in that challenging weather and challenging terrain? How challenging is it to fly choppers there?
Thanks, Rohit. Very tragic indeed, a shocking news. Loss of such valuable lives is a major tragedy for the families and for the country as such. Our heartfelt condolences. Now, the chopper flying, as you are talking about, is very, very challenging, very, very demanding. Helicopters fly in hills at very high altitude, and they carry out number of trips to the Kedarnath Ji helipad site. And, the weather keeps changing very rapidly in the hills. Within a minute, the entire thing may get covered, and within a minute, it may get cleared. So the pilots have to be very, very alert, vigilant. There is no met forecast and weather reporting facilities, and of course, no navigation aids. So it's left to the individual pilots who use their extraordinary skill and of course, courage to fly on those environments and carry the pilgrims to the Kedarnath helipad. So it's, you see,
all right.
Weather is the worst enemy of the pilots. Weather is the worst enemy of the pilots. And in the hills and bad weather is a very deadly combination. So if you are, sometimes you may even get trapped in spite of the fact that you have been very careful, very vigilant and alert, but you get trapped, and at that time, chances of you getting disorientated and hitting obstructions cannot be ruled out. Yeah.
All right. So, Air Commodore Siwach, I'll come back to you. Captain S.S. Panesar also joining us, former Director of Flight Safety for the Indian Airlines. Captain Panesar, thanks very much for speaking to us. What do you think in your assessment could have led to this crash? Because aren't there necessary assessments and checks done before the chopper is allowed to take off if there is bad weather and the terrain is challenging where these choppers keep making multiple trips?
Let me say at the outset, most of the helicopters are absolutely ill-trained, inexperienced. They don't care for the weather. And even the regulatory agency does not have people to check the standard and all that. All the helicopter crashes, if you take down Indian Air Force crashes or civil crashes, you find their pilots are absolutely ill-trained. They don't consider the weather. What about how many people are getting on board? What is the weight of the total people on board the aircraft? There are so many things to calculate before you take a flight. All the helicopter crashes are by people who are ill-trained, absolutely inexperienced pilots. There are many more future helicopter crashes you will notice in the next few months because they are not trained properly. They are overconfident. They don't take precautions.
All right.
They don't go through the weather. They have no weather facilities and all that. How they take
All
chances
right.
with the people? It's a very sad
All right, so
incident
assessments
that
not clearly made. Captain Panesar saying yes. Captain Panesar, I'll come back to you. Air Commodore Siwach, you know, this Bell 407 helicopter, tell us about this this chopper, and is it suited for such altitudes and such challenging conditions?
First of all, I beg to differ with Captain Panesar. He making such sweeping statement that pilots are ill-trained, pilots are not knowledgeable, not aware, not skillful, is totally baseless. Only pilots who are highly trained, skillful, knowledgeable, know the hill flying backwards, they are only sent there. So you cannot doubt the training standard, competence levels of the pilots who are operating on those hills. And under such demanding and challenging conditions, sitting here, it is very easy to pass comments. But please remember, the DGCA is very, very particular on this, and they do not permit any pilots who are not skillful, not trained, and not competent. So that will be sending a wrong message that pilots are not well trained, not competent. Please, I hope you will appreciate this. You are doing a great damage.
Through the investigation, there will be investigation which will find out the real reason for the crash. True point taken, Air Commodore Siwach. But tell us about this machine, Bell 407 helicopter, and what altitudes can it operate at, and what are the challenges that it faces?
Bell 407 is one of the finest helicopters, and it has been in service for a very, very long time. And its record, safety record, operation record has been very good. And it can operate up to high altitudes, which the Kedarnath, and even higher than that. And it can carry good amount of load also. Very reliable, and the pilots who are flying this helicopter, they are also very well trained. They are very competent. You see, basically the problem is that in the hills, the weather changes very, very fast. And weather is the worst enemy of pilots, and pilots have to be very careful. Number of proactive steps are being taken by the DGCA, and we in Aviation Safety India also, before the pilgrimage season starts, we issue precautions, which are very comprehensive precautions. Each and every aspect is covered. And we generally try and remain in touch with the pilots and keep on advising them that please be extra careful. Weather in the hills can change very, very fast, and you may get trapped. So you got to be careful. You have to plan for your contingency alternates. But sometimes you can call it bad luck that you get trapped in such a situation where you may not be able to get out because the valleys over there are quite narrow. There is no, space where they can maneuver the helicopter. So because of that, sometimes, unfortunately, such tragedies occur. And of course, everybody taking due precautions, being very careful. And it's a monitoring and supervision also is there. And the DGCA FOIs keep on visiting in between also to those places. So one cannot really blame any of these organizations. Yes, definitely we require some weather monitoring system and the air traffic control, air traffic management, air traffic coordination, because large number of helicopters fly in that very restricted, congested airspace. And, it becomes sometimes very difficult to control the helicopters in a safe and efficient manner. So that is the unfortunate
All right,
problem.
important points there from Air Commodore Siwach. Let me also get a word in by Captain Panesar. Captain Panesar, what are the checks that are required or that are taken before a go-ahead is given to a helicopter to fly?
Okay, let me tell you, as Group Captain has also said, the weather is the worst enemy of the pilot. Yes, There is a meteorological procedure. The pilot must understand the weather condition in the hilly area. The weather changes very fast. The winds change very fast. You have to understand which side you are going up the hill and all that, updraft, downdraft. So many studies required. These pilots, they do not take care. I do not know from where did he get the weather information or not. What are the winds like that in that area? All these things have to be analyzed by a pilot before taking a flight. He just can't take up and land. He has to know how many people are on board, their weights and all that, whether it's overweight, underweight, how he's going to fly the route flying, the obstruction, hill area. There's so many things he has to see. There are many helicopter crash. You can study the crash reports. It says the inexperienced people, they go and crash in the helicopters. It's a very sad incident.
Well, sir, the investigations will establish whether the pilot was experienced or ill-experienced. What led to the crash? That is subject to the investigation, sir.
We can't depend on the luck. Every time the fate of the passengers who are going and they say it is the fate of the passenger, they crashed and all. No. The pilots have to be fully trained about the meteorological conditions, terrain conditions, weather conditions, winds. What are the upper level winds? They change very fast over the hills. The weather is very unpredictable over the hills. Only an experienced people can study the weather and take a chance.
All right, so let the investigations establish what led to this crash. But this is an unfortunate tragedy that has happened there in Uttarakhand. My one final question to you, Air Commodore Siwach, is, what we could do, what can be done going forward to prevent such tragedies from happening?
You see, as I already covered, first of all, our training standard definitely need to improve. And training had to be taken very, very seriously. Weather had to be taken very, very seriously. Pilots need to be aware about the very rapid changes in the weather, unpredictable weather, narrow valleys, and so many helicopters flying in that restricted, congested airspace. So all the pilots have to be very, very knowledgeable, and they should stop flying when the weather is changing. Actually, you keep on getting the weather inputs from various helicopters who are flying. It's a very small distance. So it is not very difficult to get the updates about the weather. And sometimes we tend to, stretch that let's do one more trip or something like that. So that can be the culprit which can create problems. Otherwise, frankly speaking, everything is in place, except that we need some kind of, weather-related inputs or some air traffic coordination control, because so many helicopters flying in that congested airspace is definitely a very challenging environment. Navigation aid as such is not really needed because the distance is very small. But the pilots have to be constantly and continuously on the watch and never ever take any chances. They should stop flying before the weather gets very messy. So that is the only thing pilots have to remember. And in case they get trapped,
if the weather
they should always
Air Commodore Siwach, I want to understand this from you. If the weather becomes inclement in the middle of the flight, is there an option for them to turn around and come back? Yes. Or is that riskier as well?
Yeah, good observation. They have full opportunity to get back to from where they departed. You see, sometimes it happens that maybe even the pilot thinks, yeah, it's a small patch, he'll be able to get through it. So that may put them into a little disadvantaged position. Otherwise, there are helipads and route also. He can return to the departure point. So all options are available to them. And you see, that's what pilots do almost every day. Because as I told you, flying is very, very challenging, very, very demanding, very high level of skills, knowledge, training, and our pilots are definitely up to it. And they are doing a great job. Thousands, almost lakhs of sorties are flown during the season in such challenging environments, you can't imagine. And still there is a very high standard of safety. Some unfortunate, bad luck, accident take place. So that's, I suppose, we can't really sort of rule out such things. But again,
Yes.
You cannot find fault with any of these things. It's just unfortunate that weather changes are very rapid and one has to be very cautious, careful.
All right, Air Commodore Siwach and Captain Panesar, thanks very much for speaking to us and making us understand what could have led to this unfortunate tragedy. The investigations will really establish what led to this crash and whether it could have been prevented. But we are getting an update, breaking news now coming in. All 7 on board that chopper have died. So earlier the death toll was 6, but now we're getting information all 7 on board, 6 passengers and the pilot, all have died in that crash that happened near Kedarnath. An unfortunate tragedy. The investigations will take place into what led to this chopper crash, which will determine the cause of this crash. But as I said, it's an unfortunate tragedy. All 7 on board that chopper have died. That's the latest information we are getting. This accident happening near Kedarnath in Uttarakhand. All right, we're stopping for a